Hi, and welcome to the third presentation of the DG Components Open Source Preview. In the first presentation, and both of them will be linked in the description, we went over the new DG CLI, which is a new way to manage and a new DX for your developer experience for your Dagster project. Then in the second demo, we went over consuming components, which is a new framework that effectively allows less technical or stakeholders or people who don't want to learn their Python API to use Dagster with a YAML front end. And we did that with prefab integrations. In this presentation, we're going to go over building custom components. And we think this is where a ton of power in the system resides. And we're going to show how, with relatively simply, we can build a single class or a couple classes and really deliver a full end-to-end product experience for our stakeholders, which is super exciting. So just to refresh, the goal of components is one, to increase accessibility to people who don't want to learn Python or don't want to learn a deep Python API by providing a built-in YAML front end with strong tooling support. We want to be able to build better and faster integrations, faster in terms of developer productivity, and have a uniform experience so that you build a component and then we have this full end-to-end product experience for your stakeholders. And then what this enables, we think, is two things which are very powerful and build on each other, which is the ability for your stakeholders to largely self-serve and onboard onto the platform and do so in a standardized way. So they have uniform project layouts, they all abide to standards, and all those standards and conventions are baked into code and not documentation. And we think that is really powerful as well. Okay, so out of the box integrations are great, as the previous demo showed, but they're often good only for demos. And what you really want as a data platform owner is the ability to customize and to your domain, to your users, and to integrate with the custom technologies that are in your unique stack, either for legacy or preference purposes. So real world use cases always need customization. And we think this is where Dagster really shines relative to other low code tools or other tools built with YAML front ends that are much, much more difficult to customize. In our system, you just write Python that you're used to writing and the system takes care of itself. And I'm going to build a custom component right in front of your eyes. A component is three things. And if you're a Dagster user who's built a Dagster installation at a complex platform, you may have already built these things. So one, it's a definitions factory. It is a function that produces definitions. In our docs and when working with our team, you might have heard of these as asset factories, but really they can be generalized to any set of definitions. There's a YAML schema. Right? So effectively, the user experience here is that you build some Pydantic models, and then you get a YAML schema and all the tools associated with that. It's a great experience. And last is optionally, you can also build custom scaffolding. And so what that means is that there's this scaffold workflow when it comes with DG, and it kind of can create integration-specific config files or enforce standards, and we really think platform owners are going to latch onto this to decrease time to value for their stakeholders and to enforce standards. And if you do the three of these things, we think you can really deliver what feels like an end-to-end product experience for your stakeholders. I think you'll have happy stakeholders and you'll have impressed bosses, which is good for you. So let's go and hop to a demo here. And I'm going to hop to a terminal, and I'm in an empty folder, and I'm going to move myself over there, and I'm going to scaffold a project, and I'm going to call it SQL Things. Okay. So what SQL Things is going to do is we're going to write a custom component that reads a SQL file, executes it against a local DuckDB instance, and then prints it out to the screen. It's a bit contrived, but you'll get a sense of what it's like to build one of these things. So I'm going to go into SQL Things. I need to add DuckDB and pandas to this environment. And the other thing I'm going to do here is download a file that I'm going to use to query. All right, it's called raw customers. You might remember it from the last demo. Okay, so let's just double check what's going on here, make sure everything's fine. We have listed our definitions. There's no definitions in our project. That makes sense. Now what I'm going to do is list component types. Okay, so components right now, without installing anything else, comes with these two built-in integrations. The details of that don't matter, but we are going to add another one. Now, you can actually scaffold component types themselves. So we're going to scaffold a component type, okay, and then we're going to call it the DuckDB component. And that's going to create some files. So I'm going to open up VS Code. I'm going to move it to a different desktop here. It's in the middle here. And let me zoom in 1 second. Okay. So if we open up SQL things here in the browser, in VS Code, pardon me, we haven't really touched lib since in all these demos, but now there is something in there. It's this DuckDB component lib, okay? So the moment that we do that, let's see here, we had that component type list. Oh, list component type, pardon me. And it's there, and then also DG docs. Let's see if this works. Let's see here. I was in the wrong directory. Okay, let's open this up and look at that. Okay, well, I don't like that yelling that much, so I prefer lowercase. Let's do that. Okay, and I can reload this Dagster. We'll work on live reloading at some point, but just want to give you a sense of that. This is real. Okay, so first things first, let's go and so what I want in this thing is I want my users to specify two things: a SQL file and an asset key. Okay? And then I'm going to copy in an implementation that I have off screen, and we'll walk through it. It's not that complicated. And I will copy and paste some imports here. Okay. And looks like that spacing is off. Okay, so what's going on here? Effectively, I'm in this function, build devs, I'm defining a multi-asset. I am parameterizing it with the single asset that gets passed in. And then we're going to execute this right here. We're going to open up a SQL file to read. We're going to put it into a data frame and spit it out and print it out. Okay, so now that I have a component type, I want to scaffold up an instance of it. So now I can go and I can scaffold the component, and look at this. Autocomplete, that's nice. Let's call it the customers table. Okay, well, that did that. Let's look in what's happened here. So now there's the defs here, spit out a customers table, and here we go. Now, the moment that you do this, your user can do this. This is really cool. We can actually make it so that it works directly with VS Code right out of the gate. So you'll see here, integrated documentation. That is very cool. So let's call this customers table, SQL file, customers table.sql. I can make that right here. We'll just do Schrock star from raw customers, the file I downloaded already. Okay. Now, let's do a couple things. So let's check the YAML. Validated successfully. Check the defs. We are good to go. Let's list the defs. All right, now let's launch. Takes a little second the first time it launches, needs to initialize. Oh, and look at that, right? We played the role, we authored a custom component, and we played the role of your stakeholder who scaffolded up the component, right? And used it effectively using built-in tools, right? They got a YAML type ahead, they got all the stuff, right? I didn't even go in and look like what this looks like in the documentation browser. We would expect them to open that as well. Go here, click into here. Look at this. We have a nice schema. We have examples. You can see what's going on. Okay, that went very fast. Let's do something else. So you notice how I had to fill in, look at this. I had to fill in this YAML thing. I had to create this file. Like, I don't know if this is correct or not, and so on and so forth. So I'm actually going to just delete this, and we're going to start all over again, and we're going to do it with an updated component type. So first of all, let's make sure that's actually gone and nothing broke. Okay, look at that. That's fine. And now what we're going to do is we're going to update this to include a scaffolder. Now, a scaffolder effectively is a piece of code that you provide that gets called when the user types in DG component scaffold. So you make this what we call the scaffolder. It also has its own Pydantic schema, which determines the parameters you can pass into the command line. I am going to copy and paste in some more imports. In this isolated code base, I don't have all my autocompletes set up, which is too bad, but we work with what we got. That works. And then everything, oops, missed a copy and paste here. Okay. And it looks like I'm missing Pydantic. Okay, let's make sure this loads. There we go. No definitions for this project. That's right, because it is a component. Last step here is we need to hook up the component to the scaffolding. Did I accidentally delete it? Oh, that's because I have to decorate the DuckDB component, not the scaffolder. Okay, and just to go through this, what happens? You can explicitly pass in an ASCII key or SQL file, but it gives it a default name that's sensible. It actually makes sure, and it touches the file system to make sure the SQL file exists, and it creates a default component YAML for yourself. And this reduces the amount of boilerplate that your stakeholder has to deal with, and it increases standardization. So let's go through this again. And we'll make this happen. Now let's check. Look at that. It's dynamically based on just declaring those two properties in the Pydantic schema. This thing, it's making it a CLI, customized CLI app. That is very cool. Okay, but those are optional, so we're going to do the customers table again. Okay, now let's go in here and look at this. It's already filled it out. We don't need to do anything. This is this. Now we do this. Select star from okay, let's make sure that was correct. Let's make sure definitions parse. Let's list the defs, and let's launch them. And there we go. Amazing, right? You just saw, you can imagine your stakeholder coming in, they're clicking around, they're looking, they know they want the DuckDB thing, they click on it, they see what the schema is, They come in, they copy and paste the scaffold command, it creates those files, everything's standardized, you have YAML tooling, you have VS Code integration, and you have the CLI interface. And then, of course, you also have the Dagster UI when you want to switch and get more visual. So here we can materialize. So this entire tooling ecosystem is just awesome. Pardon me. And look at this. And now we can also show the markdown, the query right there, and the data. That's all in the app too. It's pretty amazing. Okay, and without further ado, I will sign off. That is building a custom component.